Okay, I this is my first time using live stream, so I'm hoping this is working correctly. I'm hoping that all of you out at your WOWZAPP events can see me. My name is Brian Keller. And I am the technical evangelist here in Redmond, Washington, where it's 7 o'clock in the morning right now. I'm the technical evangelist for Team Foundation Server and Team Foundation Service, which you may have heard of. Last week at the Build Conference, we actually announced that the Team Foundation Service, which is an implementation of Team Foundation Server built on top of the Windows Azure platform, will forever be free for teams of up to 5 people. And so that's a really great fit for any of you out there in your small teams that are getting together to build Windows or Windows Phone applications, or really any type of application that you might be building today or in the future. And so in just a few short minutes here, I'm going to show you how you can get started by creating your own Team Foundation Service account if you haven't already, and then setting up your first project, taking your projects from within Visual Studio and making them available as source control stored within Team Foundation Service, as well as then starting to use some of the more advanced capabilities around things like tracking your requirements and your bugs as you start building out your WOWZAPP applications. So without further ado, let me just jump into a quick demonstration. I'm going to start out at tfs.visualstudio.com. That is the URL that you'll want to visit so that you can sign up for an account. And you'll notice there's a lot of help tutorial up here as well. So for example, if you're trying to figure out how to use some new features later on, I would encourage you to click on this Learn tab. And once you click on Learn, you're going to learn how to do everything from connecting your development environment to starting to plan your sprints and take advantage of some of the more advanced capabilities within the platform. So when you first log in, or when you first visit this portal, you'll want to go ahead and sign in. This will sign you in with your Microsoft account, what we used to refer to as a Windows Live ID. And looks like it's just taking a minute here. I think my live stream is hogging most of the bandwidth here, so bear with me. And I have actually already created an account, and so what you'll see here is my account showing up just to remind me what my URL is. But if I was brand new, if I hadn't yet created an account, then I could basically create a new account. You'll see that it's disappeared here, but there's a sign up button that you have prior to creating an account, and you'll pick your account's URL. So I could pick wowzap.tfs, or rather .visualstudio.com, and that becomes the URL that your entire team will use to collaborate with. Make sure that you pick that URL carefully, because you actually cannot rename that URL after the fact. We have to delete and recreate your account. So just spend a few minutes thinking about what you want your account team to be, and then once you've done that, then you can log in to your portal using that address. And so here you can see an account that I've been working with, and the first thing that you'll need to do when you come in here is create what's called a team project. Now, most of the time you can get away with using a single team project to store a wide variety of Visual Studio projects and solutions, and so you really only have to do this once, but you can decide later on that you want to create multiple team projects if you want. Let me just zoom in a little bit there. And so when you create that team project, you have the opportunity to choose from several process templates. So I will choose the Scrum process template. The Scrum process template tends to be one of my favorites just because it's very lightweight and it very closely maps to what I'm most familiar with, which is practicing Scrum. But if you want a more formal process template, or maybe you're taking this back to your day job next week, you may want to check out the MSDN documentation to understand the difference between these different process templates. So I'll go ahead and create this team project. It's going to spin that up as a task on the back end, and while we're waiting for that, I'll just drop it back over into Visual Studio and we can connect to my account on the back end. So within Visual Studio 2012, you'll notice that you have this window called Team Explorer. And if you haven't worked with Team Explorer before, Team Explorer is the way that you get access to all of the Team Foundation server or service functionality straight from within Visual Studio. And when you first come in here, you won't see any of what I'm seeing now because I've already connected to my team project collection. But when you first come in, you'll basically just want to select Connect to Team Foundation Server. And from here, you'll be able to manage your account URLs. So for example, if I come in here and say https scottgoo.tfs, sorry, I'm still used to the old URL, scottgoo.visualstudio.com, then this will connect to my Team Foundation server in the cloud. And then if I haven't yet, it's going to prompt me for my live ID. I'm already signed in, so we skipped past that. And at this point, it's now going to query, and you can see that my team project has already been created, and it's ready for me to work with. So I'll go ahead and connect to that. It's just telling me it needs to close my existing project, which is fine. And now I have WOWZAPP, which is in the cloud, that I can start working with. Now there's two ways to get a project under source control. One way is to add it to source control when you first create the project. The other way is to add it after the fact. So I'll show you both ways. If I just create a brand new project here, let's say that I'm building my Windows Store application, and we'll just pick a blank app for purposes of example. You'll notice down here in the lower right hand corner that I have the option to add this project to source control. If I was to do this and click on OK, then the next screen it's going to prompt me with is where I want to add that to source control, and then we would check those files in. I'm going to assume that many of you have probably already created your projects at this point, so let's go from the point of adding an existing project to source control. So after this gets created, right within Solution Explorer, all I need to do is right click and take this project and say, or the solution rather, and say add solution to source control. Now I definitely recommend creating a folder for this, so we'll just call this my blank app, and we will click on OK. Now at this point you might think that you're done, but in fact all of these changes have just been pinned within Visual Studio. So at this point, if you move back over, I'll show you what I did there. Basically what I went over to was Team Explorer. I clicked on Home, I clicked on Pending Changes, and then this shows me the list of all of the pending changes that I have within my solution. And all I need to do is click on, I can provide a comment if I want, initial check-in, and then click on check-in, and now it's going to upload all of those files up to Team Foundation service in the cloud, and then anybody else on my team can get access to those files, and they can go through the reverse process of basically mapping their Visual Studio solutions into my Team Foundation service. And then when they do that for the first time, they'll be able to right click on the folder within Source Control Explorer and say Get Latest. So the reverse view for other people on the team, they'll come into this blank project here, and then the first thing that they should do is just go ahead and map this to a local path on their hard drive. I like to pick something like C:\WS as the path for everything. They'll go ahead and map this, and of course I already have it mapped, so this is a bad example on my machine, but when they get started with this, then they'll be able to map this for the first time, and then they'll be able to connect and actually go ahead and download that particular application into their local workspace. They can go through the process of making changes on their side, they can go back into pending changes, and then they can check those in periodically. So sorry if that's a little basic for those of you that have used Team Foundation Server in the past, but I just wanted to make sure everyone kind of understood how that works. Now, the other thing that you'll want to do, of course, once you come into this particular project is you'll need to add some team members to your project so that other people can get access to that. So here you can see I've selected my new WOWZAPP project, and I'm the only contributor at this point. And so in order for me to add additional people, I can just click on Manage All Members. At this point I can click on Add User, and in this prompt you need to type in the Microsoft account or the live ID of the person that you want to add to this project. And so for example, I'll add my brother here, and you can click on check name. At this point it just verifies that that's a valid email address. you need to really make sure that that does map to the email address, or the live ID rather, of the person that you're adding. And I'll go ahead and save that to make that change permanent, and now you'll see that he has access to my project, which is great. Now you'll notice that by default it's using the raw email address of everyone here. So if you want, you can always come into your profile and you can upload a nice looking mug shot. You can change the name. That just makes it easier so that you know somebody on your team is Drew Robbins as opposed to his live ID, which might be fuzzybunny@hotmail.com. And so at this point, anybody that you've added here has access to source control. Now there's a lot of additional capabilities within Team Foundation Service that you can start to take advantage of. I'm not going to overwhelm you and show you everything related to Team Foundation Service today, but I'll just show you a couple of my favorite features that I think might be relevant for people that are working on WOWZAPP. The first of which is if you come into the product backlog. When I click on Product Backlog, if those of you that practice Scrum are probably already familiar with the concept of the backlog is basically just a list of all of the work that you may want to do in the future. So for example, I want to add a splash screen to my icon, to my application. If I could spell this morning, that would be nice. I might also need to, fix bug with running in full screen mode. And I can actually say that that's a bug if I want to track that separately. And as you see here, I can just basically get a list of things that I want to do. And as you work with your team during WOWZAPP, you might want to come in here and use this as kind of the screen that you use to track all of your work. And of course, I can reprioritize things if I want to. I can double click on one of these items and I can add additional details. So one of the things that I use Team Foundation Service a lot for is I actually create attachments whenever somebody sends me bugs on my particular work. And so what I can do is attach that email thread, and that just makes it easier so that when I'm ready to go back and work on that, I can. So I can provide more details here. And then let's say that somebody came in here and they actually fixed one of these bugs. Then what you want to do is just transition this either to the removed state, which will go straight to removed. It'll take it off your backlog. Or if you want to take credit for it, then done is actually a little bit more appropriate, since you'll be able to run reports later on. You can show all the work that you've done. And that's kind of nice to be able to include in things like READMEs that talk about the latest version that you just published out, that sort of thing. And so this is the product backlog. Now you can also maybe in the future, as you start to expand your applications and you want to break your work down into iterations, you can also start taking this work and breaking it down by assigning it to a particular sprint. And then if I come into this particular sprint or this iteration, I can break this down even further. So I can say design the splash screen, and maybe I want to ask my brother to work on that. And then the other thing I can do is, of course, code the splash screen. I'll assign this to myself. And so you get the idea here. You can start to break this work down into kind of further work. You can even assign dates that you want to use to track the work that you're doing. So let's say that this is the week that I'm working on iteration 1. And when you've done that, you start to get some really nice task boards as well. So here, this is kind of like our modern day implementation of post-it notes on a whiteboard. And so if you choose to work at this level where you're decomposing your work into tasks, this gives you a nice surface to do that. And then as people start finishing that work, they can start dragging it from left to right. You can even assign remaining hours if you want to track at that level. And when you assign remaining hours, that makes it easy for people to say, I've actually earned a couple of hours against that. And all the while, as you do that day by day, we're actually creating a burn down chart for you. So that looks kind of funny because, of course, I'm starting at the tail end of my iteration. But usually you would start with a bunch of work on the left-hand side on day 1, and you would burn that day by day just to make sure that you're trending towards completing your project. So I hope that gives you just a few examples